guys, Dave the Honest Asian. We have solved the AR pistol dilemma. If you don't recall, when I built this upper, I decided to do a 10.5-inch barrel with a 10-inch handguard, thinking that I wouldn't have any problem mounting up my suppressor. So that was actually not true, and I didn't actually know this, but when they measure barrels, they include the chamber. And that chamber sits into the receiver, and then your handguard fits over that portion. So what happened was my 10-inch handguard ended up being longer than 10.5-inch barrel. And due to the inner diameter of the BCM MCMR, I was not able to mount my Q Thunder Chicken on there. Dimensions, if you're curious, the diameter of the Q Thunder Chicken is 1.75 inches. The inner diameter of a BCM MCMR is 1.5 inches. So if you're in a similar situation as I was, keep that in mind if you're doing another build or whatever. I kind of like that kind of recessed look to it. This didn't quite get perfect, but it got down pretty close. I maybe have a 1/4 inch between the end of the suppressor and the end of the handguard there. So what did we do? So first off, we were considering, my buddy's a machinist, and he's like, well, depending on how big the diameter is of the suppressor, we could try and bore out the inside of the handguard to add some diameter, or add to the internal diameter so you could fit it on. Or if that doesn't work, after he saw it, he's like, no way, we're going to have to cut it. I was a little hesitant about cutting it, because I paid good money for it. Or the MCMRs aren't necessarily cheap, about $250 or so. And then I was a little worried that when you look at the M-LOK slots, they're staggered, right? So there's probably maybe a 1/2 inch or so they'll step up between the angle positions and the kind of perpendicular positions. So he's like, don't worry about that. We can either weld it or weld a little piece of aluminum on, or I can stack the weld and we can grind it down. Not a big deal. So what ended up happening was I left this with my buddy, and he kind of got to work. So he cut it. It actually ended up about perfect with the end, or with one of the slots here. It lined up about perfect where it needed to be. So this end was perfectly flat. These little circles at the top, the venting for the gas tube, we didn't have to leave one kind of open or exposed. Looks really nice and clean. The the material there is a little thin, but I'm not too worried about that. So what we ended up doing on this first one down here was my buddy tried to, he cut a little piece of aluminum, then welded it on, ground it flat, and he thought that was a little bit more work than what it needed to be. So the rest of the slots that needed to get or make a bridge across, he just stacked the weld up on top of each other and ground it all flat. Now, I painted this afternoon. When I was putting my accessories and stuff back on, I did kind of nick it right there. I'll touch that up in the future. Not super worried about that. But I'm super impressed with how he did this. It looks super clean. The Picatinny, or the M-LOK slots where we had to end or leave open, he welded up. They look perfectly square. He even beveled the edge here to kind of give it a little bit more factory look, take some of those sharp edges off, kept everything nice and tight. The beveling on there isn't perfect, but for a buddy's work to do, I'm super happy with this. And I think somebody, if they picked it up, unless they really looked at it, they would have a hard time figuring out that we had to modify this. Now, I'm super happy with this. I don't think that there's anything else I would have changed. I don't think, aside from buying a different handguard or being smarter and knowing that chamber is included in the barrel measurement, this went as well as it could have. Now, if you're curious, this is the Q Thunder Chicken. I've got a Surefire M93 flashlight on there. BCM, I think it's the stubby vertical foregrip, and then a Fab Defense backup iron sights, Magpul ASAP sling attachment point, EOTech 512. Now, the one thing I will say was I was a little concerned about having, you know, attachments or whatever go into these slots that were modified. My buddy said it should be fine. He said, I have no experience with, you know, machining or metalwork at all. He's like, well, when you weld something, that the weld actually becomes the strongest the strongest spot in that part. So I'll take his word for it. He's got plenty of experience, knows everything, or knows a lot more than I do when it comes to this kind of stuff. So should be good. You know, if you guys are curious, you can actually run vertical foregrips on pistols as long as the overall length is over 26 inches. Now, the ATF, I think within this last year, changed the rules a little bit on how they measure. It used to be the pistol brace had to be in the fully extended position, and that's where they got their 26 inches from. Within the last year, they changed it to now the brace has to be in the most collapsed position possible, and then they measure from the end of essentially what the buffer tube is out to the muzzle, not including muzzle brakes or unless they're properly pinned and welded. So this particular AR pistol is about 29.5 or so when this is collapsed to the muzzle without a muzzle device on there. So I'm well within the guideline or the kind of law to run a vertical foregrip. If anybody has any other questions on that, there's some really great articles and stuff out there. Just give it a quick search. Make sure you're trying to follow the law. You don't want to get hung up for something stupid. But past that, I'm super happy with this. This is pretty much done. I don't think there's anything left that I really want to do to it. Maybe in the future I'll change out the optic here, get another IR device or something, but this mainly right now is a kind of plinking gun. I used to kind of keep this in my bedroom for something, you know, similar to like home defense or whatever. But the more I thought about it, the more hesitant I was just to shoot kind of like self-defense grade ammunition inside. My hearing is already fucked. Now that I can put a suppressor on, that's less of an issue, but shooting a 5.56 or 2.23 with all my neighbors kind of in close proximity, I have a little bit of worry of over-penetration. So I've got a couple other firearms that I have for that. This, I think, is just going to stay in my safe for plinking, doing some you know, target work or whatever. But that's pretty much all I got for you guys. If you guys have any other questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to shoot me a message. I've been doing pretty good at replying to most of the comments. But if you thought this video was cool, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.